Welcome to another episode of the Pineapple Perspective with your host, Troy Hooper. I am Troy Hooper, and this is sponsored by Pepper Lunch Restaurants each and every time, including this one. I have the great privilege today of talking to a very smart mind in our industry, and we've had a few conversations around technology over the last few shows, and this is going to be an excellent addition to that cadence of conversation because Jeremy Julian has been around this side of the industry for a very long time. And really what Jeremy does, I think, is solves problems for brands and helps brands understand how different technology can actually be brought together to solve whatever the issue is. And he's got some examples to share with us today. Jeremy, great to have you on the show. Thanks for joining us.
I'm glad we could sit down because both of us do the roadshow circuit, and it's tough to get us on a podcast. But I'm grateful for you having me.
Hey, listen, we might not see each other at every show, even though we might try. But I'll just get on a random flight in Phoenix, Arizona at 1:40 in the afternoon and run into you sitting up front going to Dallas or Austin or whatever that
where
day.
I was going, but yeah, I was like, what are you doing on this? What are you doing on this flight? Yeah, that was pretty funny.
Well, the best part of that is it wasn't obvious. Like we weren't both leaving a show. Like, you leave a show whenever
going to the same show.
Yeah,
we were going somewhere separate.
Yeah, we weren't coming from or going to the same show. We just both happened to be going oddly between the same cities. Pretty fun. I did fail to mention, make sure we get in later. You also are the host of your own podcast, and you're way more seasoned at this than I am. So feel free to jump in and save me at any moment as you're a very seasoned guy with your fancy headset on there too.
Yeah, you got the fancy mic, and you got the production value more than I do, but I appreciate you having me.
That's the big corporate dollars right there. Jeremy, we start all of our shows off not with a little banter like that, but typically with the following question. What does hospitality mean to you?
I personally think, and I know I've talked to our mutual friend Sean about this as well, is I think humans want connection. And I think hospitality is coming across the aisle in a connected way. I think we choose to do that in food, but I think hospitality could be anything, but it's coming across the aisle and empathizing with somebody and helping them to achieve what it is that they're looking for.
So where does that mindset come for you? Give me some examples, and whether it's your childhood or some other point in life, you sort of form that idea of what hospitality means. Because at the end of the day, even though you're a tech guy in a tech business, you are in the hospitality. You've chosen hospitality restaurants as one of your primary sectors of business. So where does that come from for you?
It comes from interacting with restaurant brands. They are bringing somebody into their own kitchen to deliver a product to them. At the end of the day, most people started a restaurant because they liked a product, they liked something that they did and wanted to serve other people. And so for me, my life is about service. Our business is about serving others and trying to help them be in that space. And so that's really what it means to me is how do I get to a place where I'm able to serve Troy and Pepper Lunch or some other brand in a way. And so Pepper Lunch, I'm certain, came from some desire to serve people. And it started as one. Now it's, 500 or whatever. But at the time, it started with one person serving a product to another person in a way that's hospitable to help them achieve something that they're looking for.
Yeah, and Pepper Lunch, for a lot of people that don't know, is actually spawned off of from a full service version of the same concept. It was a teppanyaki steakhouse, full service traditional teppanyaki steakhouse, and our founder wanted to make it more accessible, make it more convenient. So the fast casual version of a Japanese steakhouse was born 30 years ago this year, actually. While we're in that vein, you're in the tech space. You help solve problems with technology. You help enhance businesses' performance and efficiency with technology. How in your business do you deploy hospitality?
It starts with a lot of questions. To understand, very seldom does a flight get to where it's going without knowing where they're trying to get to. And so with that, if we were to be working together, I would sit down with you and say, help me understand what you're trying to achieve. What is your brand objective? What are your goals? What are you trying to do? Because technology for technology's sake is worthless. Mm-hmm. Technology that solves human problems and guest problems is the only thing that you need to be investing your time and energy in. And so with that, it starts with a huge list of questions. We've got a list of questions inside of our business when we engage with a brand and try and understand where they're trying to go, because what you're doing at a Ruth Chris Steakhouse does not look the same as at a McDonald's. They both happen to be selling food, But at the end of the day, where they're trying to go and how they're trying to interact with their guests and their brand is going to determine what solutions you're trying to provide to them, whether it's something that we choose to build or we partner with somebody else to build that to help them understand that. So it really starts questioning that brand. Where are they trying to get to, and what pain are they trying to solve? What innovation are they trying to do? And that informs our next steps in the process.
So Jeremy, before we go into some of these topics of the day, which is where we try to bring value to the audience, tell us a little bit about you. What's your background? You've been doing this exact thing for quite a while, but what's your background? Do you ever work in a restaurant?
I did. So I tell people, my kids were teasing me over the weekend about it. I've only ever worked either in restaurants or in restaurant tech. So our business too is celebrating 30 years in this year. So we incorporated in 1994. And my jobs in high school and in college, I rode my bike to a Denny's in Tustin, California. I didn't even have a driver's license yet. And that was my first full service job. Thank God for those guys, because they put up with a lot of crap with me serving $1.99 Grand Slams on the swing shift, which sucked. Let me just tell you, because tips were rough. My job before that was at a sandwich shop in Southern California, Togo's. I went from Togo's to Denny's, and then Denny's to Spoons. I don't know if anybody remembers Spoons. It was kind of a Chili's type knockoff brand that was based in Southern California. I say knockoff. At the time, Chili's only had a few, but it was kind of that casual bar. Then I went off to college, worked restaurants in college, and then coming back, CBS happens to be my family's business. And so I've been there full time for 28 years. So the business has been around 30. I've been there for 28 years. So I've seen a lot of changes. And really even my summer times, I've got a funny picture that I like to share with people of me at like 8 or 9 years old, programming an old school cash register on the dining room table with the wood paneling boards and the floral, dark floral print from like the 70s on my kitchen wall behind me. But no, absolutely. So I've been doing restaurants and restaurant tech for as long as I can remember.
That's amazing. That's fantastic visual. I resonate with that. You and I are similar in age, and so yeah, I grew up on the construction site of restaurants, bars, and nightclubs, but so similar but different angle from the same thing, being a family business into the business, right? Well, very cool. So, for context, I want to ask you some questions about restaurants and technology today. And now we know a little bit about you. We can get into this. Where do you think restaurants miss the boat when they're making investments in technology today?
I think they don't know where they want to go. I mean, back to that original question, I think they don't understand who they are and who they want to be when they grow up. And so with that, I think they make short-term decisions to solve a pain point that they don't really even know if it exists. I've seen way too many people that say, "Oh, I got to have an app." Help me understand why you need to have an app. I think apps are great. I think apps are fantastic. But who is your consumer and what are you trying to get to? For some brands, apps are in their brand image. Other people don't need an app. I'm not going to download an app for a place that I go to once on my anniversary or once on my birthday, because why would I do that? And so I think all too often brands don't completely understand what it is that they're trying to get to. And so they try and solve it with technology without having the hard business conversation about what it is that you're trying to do. So that's where I see people investing money, and then they see failures. And then what happens is it fails. Whatever that app doesn't deliver back to the business what they think it should. And then they come back and go, well, no technology is going to work. I just got a sales guy that's just trying to sell me something. And at the end of the day, I think it comes back to what is it that you're trying to achieve? What are you trying to achieve for your staff? And what are you trying to achieve for your guests? And I ask a lot of times our customers to do a tool that's called an impact filter. I even talked to our own team about it, which is, what is the ideal outcome once you get done with this objective? Because if I can articulate that in a couple of sentences, it's going to give me as the partner crystal clarity as to what we're trying to achieve so that I can overcome that and get you what you're looking for.
You kind of referenced failures there. What are some of the reasons technology projects or implementations fail within a brand?
Typically, it's resource allocation. It's either resource allocation or it's executive buy-in. And I'll start with resource allocation being number one. Oftentimes, they throw a project on top of somebody's plate when they already have a full-time job. Hey, Troy, I want you to go implement technology and go sell franchises. Well, unfortunately, one is going to lose. You're either going to get the technology done or you're going to get the franchises done, but you're not going to get both done. And so, unfortunately, they take some of their best players that are doing key roles within the business and they tack on extra work to them and expect them to achieve both. And unfortunately, it doesn't work well. You have to take something away in order to, because automatically when they're saying yes to the technology calls, once a week, they're automatically missing out on the hour that they would have spent with a staff member to do a feedback session, or they're going to miss out on an inventory thing or time scheduling, or they just put in extra hours. And so unfortunately, probably number one is resource allocation. The second is executive buy-in, because whether it's an owner or it's a franchise or it's a corporation, you need to have a project charter that says, this is what we're trying to do, this is where we're going, and then you hand that to the resources that you've now put in place to say, this is what needs to take place. And I think all too often, they will pick a project, pick a partner, hand it to somebody that's a key team player and go run, and they don't give them both the resources or the support when they run into resistance from others around the team that don't want to play nicely with everybody.
Well, and that's something that I'm on record of saying, not only on this show, but from stages, all kinds of stages, when I'm in this sort of conversation around technology, which is you have to get stakeholder buy-in. And that starts with I love how way you said it, identify the problem. Is there really a problem? And is the tool really the thing needed to solve the problem? And if so, or you find a tool and it will enhance your business one way or the other, but it's usually done from the top down or the middle out, right? In this case, and they don't get the end users, i.e. the customers or the employees. They don't get the buy-in by including them as the stakeholders in the process, whether it's the investigative process, the engagement process, the development and creation process. Basically you wake up one day, you go to work, and we're implementing something next week. Right? We're rolling out a whole new technology next week. Here's the videos from the supplier. Please watch and know how to master the use of this tool next week, right? And yep. they find out at implementation and they ask themselves, well, did you think about all the ways this impacts my day-to-day business? Did you think about how this impacts my customers? And then you get that fear-based knee-jerk reaction, and that becomes resistance, which then just sabotages the whole thing. And I think that's a big part of the failure picture in restaurant technology. Is certainly it's at the implementation phase, but it's because the planning didn't involve all the stakeholders. They didn't have ownership and equity in the project. And then, you just slam it on them, like you said. And, now we're going to use 8% of the tool, right? We're probably going to poorly use it. We're not going to roll it out correctly. Nobody's going to know how to use it right. It's just going to sit on a shelf until we cancel it, right?
Yep. Well, and the two other pieces that I would throw at you, Troy, in this that I've seen fail is that they try and take on too much at the same time. So trying to take on too much at the same time rather than piecing together little bits by bit, still part of the global project plan that's been communicated out to everybody. But it's like, hey, do we need to take on all of it? Early days, hey, we want to put in a new point of sale and a new inventory package and a new gift card package and a new online ordering package. Well, you don't have online ordering now. You don't have inventory now. You don't have gift cards now. Why don't we replace the point of sale? Then we'll add online ordering. Then we'll add gift cards. Then we'll add inventory management, because you know what? Unfortunately, and I call it, how much indigestion do you want when you're going to put in a new piece of technology? The other piece is iterating. I think, and you and I have talked about this offline, but when we rolled out, almost 5,000 tablets for BJ's, Restaurants and Brewhouse, casual dining chain, you and I both know it from Southern California, they realized when they first put them into the first few stores that they were struggling because they needed to now staff their dining rooms differently because orders were getting into the kitchen faster. The non-alcoholic drinks that typically the servers would leave the station to go get, now we're printing to a non-alcoholic beverage printer. They needed to staff that person there in order to get the drinks. Or if you wanted the servers to stay in the station longer, that's not something that was part of the project charter when they first built it. So they needed to now modify their labor models to be able to add this non-alcoholic beverage person. They needed to staff the expo window to be able to go run food for people. None of those things had been thought about, quite frankly, because the other brands that were doing handhelds, ordering at the table and paying at the table, were smaller footprints, physically smaller footprints. So at a Chili's, nothing wrong with Chili's. Chili's is actually killing it right now. They didn't have as far to walk from the patio back to the kitchen to go get those non-alcoholic beverages. Whereas in a BJ's, much bigger footprint, they physically didn't have the time to get both places. And so it was hurting guest experience as much as they were investing all of this money. And so then they changed their staffing model. And so I think iterating on what it is to get the desired end result is a key piece that people need to think about as well.
Yeah, and I don't want to call out brands that one day might be a friend, but there's one with a red bird that serves burgers that did not do it correctly.
Yep.
I've had two really bad experiences. I was like, I'll give them another try. I have a 4-year-old. It was hopeful because it's on the corner, and and man, they decided that table tablet ordering was going to replace the staff, and they went to like 2 servers to staff an entire dining room, and yet the tablet didn't allow you to place your entree order. It only let you get cocktails, NA beverages, and desserts and play games, but it would not let you order your food. Well, I got a 4-year-old who's starving, who's pissed off, who's, very unhappy. Like, I just need to order his meal. I just need a kid's meal. Don't worry about me. I'll be fine in a few. I just need a kid's meal and a cocktail. Okay.
Yep.
And I can't do that. But yet this tablet is here. Why? What is this tablet meant to do? Get me to buy extra alcohol? That's really what it's there for. I'll tell you that right now. Right? It's the upsell tool only. It's not actually a utility for my convenience. And then you understaff the store, assuming that the tablet's picking up a portion of the job, and it really wasn't. It was actually causing more work, in my opinion, when you looked at the workflow. So very similar type story, but worst case scenario, I think BJ's probably got it sorted out. So Jeremy, let's talk about the state of restaurant technology today. What sort of table stakes right now? What's exciting right now? And then the follow-up question is going to ask about the future.
Yeah, I mean, table stakes has been for a long time is both an in-store ordering channel, which typically is your POS, and an external ordering channel, which is typically an online ordering platform. Those are table stakes. Like, if you don't have those things, you're not relevant. The ability to order, depending upon your service model, from some other digital means is also critical. Oftentimes that is through a third-party delivery marketplace, some way, some shape, somehow. You've got to make sure that it's easy for your staff to be able to execute against that, and you're able to communicate back with your guests because more and more people are ordering on those marketplaces. And then really, for me, it's having some form of kitchen automation. Sometimes that's KDS and screens back there. Sometimes that's printers, but with timing and being able to understand what your workflows are like, because guests are looking to know when they're getting their food. Back to your example of your kid just a few minutes ago, there is no worse time than when your kid's food doesn't show up when you need it to, when he's frustrated about, because it's going to ruin a meal for you and your wife, because now he needs his food right now and it turns miserable. And so those I think are table stakes as far as within the brand. Obviously, there's lots of different enhancements that you can do to that, including digital ordering kiosks and the ability to order from your phone in the dining room and your ability to reorder from these kiosks that are at the table. But I think table stakes are those items. Is you got to make sure your kitchen's right. You got to make sure. And then I guess one other piece that I failed to mention is you've got to figure out labor management. You got to figure out labor management. It's one of your big core costs that you have within the business, and staff members are looking to be able to move shifts, change shifts, communicate digitally with their leadership to be able to know what those things are going on. And so ensuring that you've got some digital means to communicate with those people. And really, I think table stakes very, very soon is same day pay and access to your pay and access to your tips is going to be something that more and more brands are going to struggle, because almost every brand is at least looking at it if they don't already have it.
Yeah, that's an interesting call out. I haven't heard too many people talking about that from your type of position. Obviously the sales reps for all those companies come knocking on the door, and I agree with you. I mean, I empathize completely. I asked you early on about your start. We all started. I was a busboy, and then actually became an expo, and then a kitchen manager, and then a chef. But I have bartended, I have served on the side as well, and every day matters, right? And having access, especially some of these, since the cash world has gone away, some of these folks are talking about pretty significant income on a daily basis.
Most people are not paying out cash at the end of the shift, and they're putting
Correct.
it on your paycheck. And for me, when I was waiting
and
tables,
taxes.
when I was waiting tables, dude, that was my money to go out with at 17, 18, 19 years old that night. And if I didn't have
that was
that
the
cash
gas money and the food money for today and tomorrow. Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah. So yeah, I totally appreciate that. I'm glad you brought that up. That's very interesting. So what about the near and then midterm? I don't really care about long-term pontification, but what about near and midterm? What are the next things if we've got some of those basics and we're on the project path of some of these things that you've mentioned? What should we be looking at in the near and then the midterm for our restaurants?
We wouldn't be talking about technology in 2024 without talking about AI. And I think AI, is a big piece. That where I think AI though, and funny enough, being in the tech space, AI has been around for a lot longer than people realize. But I
Yeah.
think one of the big pieces that I think we're getting to a place where the data to be able to communicate back with your guests, the data to be able to make business decisions based on what's going on within the brand are there. And they're so much easier. They don't require data scientists. Years ago, working with some large brands, they had full rooms of data scientists that would pour through this data. Now you can write a simple query that says, how many people should I staff as cashiers on a Tuesday? And it will tell you based on your last 6 Tuesdays. But that was logarithms that were written for days, weeks, and months of people's time to be able to do that. AI can spit that stuff out. We recently launched a product. You and I didn't even talk about this in the pre-show, but we recently launched a product where we're getting kitchen timing based on day, shift, and basket going into the kitchen with a projected time based on ordering channel. So if Troy's going to order these 3 items from BJ's, we know that if he has a Caesar salad, a Pizookie, and a club sandwich at this restaurant on a Tuesday at 6 p.m., it's going to take 13 minutes to produce that. On a Friday, that same meal may take 22 minutes. So you can get real-time analytics and real-time data back to the guests as to whether 22 minutes is an acceptable time for you to wait for that meal based on the basket, based on that kitchen, based on the time of day, all of those kind of things, all using machine learning and AI. So that's probably the first one that I see. I think the second one that I think is here today is voice ordering, not just at the drive-through. You and I talked about this pre-show. I think if people truly analyzed how many phone calls they missed in a restaurant, and how many times people called and said, hey, can you please hold? Because they're working the cash wrap, they're working, the host stand, and then people just hang up. They'd be appalled how many times people are still getting, and you might think, oh, we're in the digital age. Everybody's using an app. Everybody's using third party. At the end of the day, it is still a method that people are looking to. So solving for that, now AI and voice AI can solve for that to where you can get that order straight into the point of sale, just like it was a digital order through online ordering or through a third-party marketplace, straight into your point of sale without having a staff member have to do that. People will say, well, what about those modifications, those weird things that I want to have on those items? You can get 80% of the order, 90% of the order, and it is so realistic. I was just showing somebody last week, I was at a trade show in Chicago, and I played the pizza ordering demo on my phone, and they were blown away with how well the AI now works to be able to do that. And so those would be the 2 things that I think in the short term. And then the last one is computer vision. If you haven't already seen the guys at Nomad Go, they're using computer vision to take inventory from 90 minutes down to 9 minutes in a walk-in in a dry storage area. But there's lots of people for the cameras above the food prep line to make sure that item went out. You've got a peanut allergy, make sure no peanuts get into those things. Computer vision is here. It's here to use these cheap cameras to be able to help you do what you and I were trained to look for, but we've lost so much of the talent and so much of the know-how to be able to do those things in our industry. Now training a computer model to be able to say, this is what it's supposed to be plated like. So you make sure that you've got plating execution really clean. Those things exist today. And in the full service world, how many times have you sat there and had a drink not get refilled, even if it's just a water? Computer vision can help see that your water and now alert you in the service station that says, hey, go to table 32 because they're missing waters. So computer vision can do that to help your staff to deliver the experience that you promised when you go into the brand.
Now, that was something I've never heard before. You mean my cocktail can get down to 15% full and somebody's going to hear, go see Troy and offer him another one. If you do it before the food arrives, he'll order it because he's not going to have a drink with his food. If you wait till his food arrives, he's going to ask for a water.
Absolutely. But that's the kind
Yeah.
of stuff that we were trained when we waited tables and you worked in the kitchens to do. But unfortunately, whether it's staffing levels, whether it's just the talent that's in the dining rooms nowadays, they're not doing that as often. So how do we have computers to help? I don't think computers are going to replace people, but I think they're going to aid people to doing the job that we want them to be doing anyway, which is being hospitable.
I
Back
just
to
want
what
the
we started
drink. I
with.
don't care if I don't care how it gets ordered, and I don't care how it gets to my table.
Yep, absolutely.
I've spent a lot of time in Japan. I love being able to hit, I'll have more Toro, please. And a little train shows up at my thing in about 2 minutes.
I love
And
that.
I can get my dish off the train. If I could do that for my cocktails during a football game and get some more chips for my chips and queso or add guac to my, please just make it easy for me to get it. I don't need to wait for a human being to decide I'm done chit-chatting in the service station.
Yeah, because we all know that
And
that
by the
happens.
way, the server station being out in the middle of the dining room for some brands that are one of my favorite brands that is super convenient everywhere I am with my family, doesn't stop the chit chat. By the way, just because they're out in the
It's
middle.
awful. I sat yesterday waiting for my check at a local Chinese restaurant. I'm like, you're sitting here watching me stare at you while you're on your phone for 5 minutes. I just
Right.
want my check because my kids are ready to go home.
Well, that's very fascinating. Well, you talked a lot about some things that were sort of front of house predominantly. What are your thoughts about back office? What about HQ efficiency and automations or AI usage there? What are you seeing, or what have you got your hands in?
I think one of the big ones is, I mean, we know that our other prime costs outside of labor is food cost. So where are those anomalies that are coming in with food cost? The ability to scan invoices automatically as they're getting sent and being able to alert people to anomalies, in your world, beef pricing. Beef pricing goes up. Historically, you used to have to sit and enter those invoices line by line. And then if you had a good back office system, it would tell you about those things. That is a huge one. I said it earlier, Nomad Go. If you haven't checked out Nomad Go, Troy, you guys have to figure it out because they are amazing. It's a bunch of engineers out of Microsoft that took the LiDAR camera that's inside of an iPad and can now train the model to go. You've probably been into a Circle K or into a ballpark, and you set a beer down inside of this little kiosk, and it rings up and it knows that that's a beer. It knows that that's a Snickers bar. It's doing something similar where I'm scanning the dry storage area. I know that I'm in the dry storage area that's in the front, and I go scan this, and it is how many, it knows that it's a 24-ounce bottle of barbecue sauce versus a 12-ounce bottle of barbecue sauce. And it will do those counts both for inbound on an invoice on a pallet. I can walk around that pallet and take and receive that invoice and have it post and give me any anomalies that it didn't see. So now I just have to go look at them versus tearing apart the whole pallet, looking at all of the items, scanning through the invoice, making sure all of those products are there. It can do that in like 3 minutes. Same thing with doing the walk in the dry storage and or the walk-in. It can do that with this camera to be able to help kitchen staff and such. I know that wasn't headquarters type stuff, but
That's huge.
But how many times do you and or your team in the past have to go call about variances in inventory? Why is your food cost so high? What's going on? It's because they didn't count something, or they overcounted something, or they put it in ounces when it should have been in pounds, or whatever those kind of things are. This computer software is allowing people to be able to do that when they started yesterday and they're 17 years old and they've never done a physical inventory. They can get trained in 3 minutes to be able to do a physical inventory for an entire restaurant in less than an hour.
That's amazing for bars when you're doing bottle volumes and things like that as well. That's fascinating. I will definitely check them out. I do remember when Apple announced that LiDAR camera technology. I remember, and man, I feel like it's been a couple of years even, but I remember thinking to myself, wow, that would be pretty fascinating. I want to say some company, I mean, I don't know how old Nomad Go is. I don't think it was them, but some company in the last 2 or 3 years that sort of previewed the ability to use that technology. I don't know that the product was built yet, but yeah, it's awesome to see that it's in market now. It's a usable tool. So I'm definitely going to check that out. That's definitely new learnings, I think, for most of us listening to the show. Well, good stuff, Jeremy. What did I not ask you about? What about some guest-facing preference stuff? I know in our pre-conversation, you talked a little bit about a specific case study where point of sale integrated to OpenTable for full service. So, we're not having to just sit here and talk about QSR fast casual, but, on the full service side, where reservations are being used or guest profiles are being used to try to give customized hospitality. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, everybody wants the norms effect. Everybody's concerned about the privacy, but at the same time, everybody wants to be known, everybody wants to be seen, and everybody wants to be heard. And so we engaged with a project with the OpenTable, one of the stalwarts in kind of the reservation and guest engagement side. We've done it with other brands in the past, but how do I know that Troy's coming out for a dinner for business versus Troy's coming out for a dinner with his wife in this brand, and then engage him differently based on before I walk up to the table, I'm going to learn something new about Troy, because Troy may or may not be in my brand, because most of these brands that are using OpenTable, frequency is a lot less than it might be at a Pepper Lunch. I might be there twice a year or 3 times a year at a Ruth Chris or at a Morton Steakhouse or something along those lines. So how do I prep them? And so we recently integrated with OpenTable for a couple of our brands, and the guest engagement and really ultimately the sales has been increased, because before the server gets to the table, they're able to see who that guest is. They're not walking up and grabbing the little 2-inch piece of paper. Next time you're at a restaurant that has OpenTable, a lot of them print the little thing and set it on the table, and they go it, and then they go kind of look. It's just, I mean, now being in the space, you probably all already know that. How do I now get that before I've walked up to the table? So now I can have the cheers effect for Troy when I walk up to his table. And so they've seen double-digit sales growth based on just increasing. They had OpenTable before, they had point of sale before, but now marrying the two to be able to drive that. Now they can have an informed conversation that says, you like tequila to drink. And so we've got these 3 new tequilas that are going to be on our menu. Should I offer that to you in addition to what you would normally get? Hey, I know you normally get this, Troy. Can I extend you out to this and upsell at the places that you might need to do it? I see that you're celebrating your anniversary. What does that create? It creates appetizer sales. It creates dessert sales in these environments to be able to drive that behavior.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm a picky SOB. I like everything, but I like it my way, right? I don't eat chocolate. Please don't tell me about the chocolate special.
Yep.
I'm a fruity pie, gelato, ice cream kind of guy. Tell me about those things, right? And the ability to do that when it's even just sort of implied or suggested or it's sort of that soft sell that you feel like, wow, man,
they get me.
You nailed it. Like, I don't know how they nailed it, but they nailed it. You don't even sit there and think about, oh, I have a profile in OpenTable and they know I prefer Diet Coke over Pepsi or something like that. That's not in your mind. The experience you're having is, wow, they remember me, or they recognize me, or boy, everything they suggested tonight just sounded right. And I just was a yes man all night. They got me tonight. Well, the reality is they know that you're a steak eater versus a chicken eater, or that you don't like fish, or you always order fish, or they know that your wife's a vegetarian. And so if they're going to stand there and talk about the steaks tonight, they better have mentally prepared to have an alternative for the guest at the table that doesn't eat meat, right? So I think there's a lot of use cases for that. Follow-up question to that I'm always been fascinated by, and people still today get really itchy about it. But what are your thoughts about that in QSR fast casual with using facial recognition? Similar type experience.
So everybody expects customization and personalization everywhere they are, except for offline commerce. And so it's really funny because when we're on Facebook, when we're on Google, when we're on Amazon, we have it. It's there. My Amazon looks different than yours. Your Amazon looks different than your wife's. Your wife's looks different than my wife's. So we are okay with it there. But when they walk up and say, hey, Troy, because the camera recognized you when you came in, do you want the steak special? People get weirded out. We actually did deploy some similar technology with camera recognition in a kiosk. And it happened to be in the state of California. And that brand happened to get a couple of letters saying that they were going to sue them if they continue to recognize who those people are. And so I think it's a very fine line where people want that personalized experience, but they want to opt into it. And so I think if you can get to a place where you opt in, I think people expect it. I think if you're not opting into it, then it turns creepy and people are like, he's checking me out. He knows how I voted. He knows what I did here and he knows what I did there. And so I think it's a very fine line that you have to ensure that you're opting in. And then as a brand, you need to not be creepy about it. You need to not go, which again, we've been in restaurants long enough to recognize, oh, there's a really attractive lady. The guys go look up their number. Like, you got to get away from some of those kind of things where from time to time, those things are the slippery slope that people can see. So you've got to make sure that that data is only provided to the staff member when and where they need it for the business purposes that it's intended for, not necessarily at a global scale where they can get to those things, or you're going to get yourself in trouble.
Yeah, and I think in QSR fast casual, it's what I would call just in time. It's in that moment. It just affects the menu being presented. It just affects the suggestions. It just sort of it automatically recognizes loyalty and would you like to redeem your free milkshake today? You've been here 10 times in 90 days. We want to reward you with a surprise and delight. Like those kinds of recognitions. Look, it is not an option when you go to an airport anymore.
Yep.
Okay, just I'll get past that. It is not an option. Now there's a sign that says your image is immediately deleted once you've been recognized. Okay, good for you. It is an option if you want to skip the hour and a half long customs line coming home, because I walk right through and he says, welcome back, Mr. Hooper. And I walk through using camera vision recognition. It's not an option getting on an international flight at LAX. It's not. The only way you get on the flight is to show your passport and your boarding pass, or stand there and let them recognize your face and let you in. So I agree. I understand commerce and retail are a different world environment and security is not an issue. But the reality is I open my Chick-fil-A app with my face.
Yep. And all of us do.
Now that's Apple that has my face, not Chick-fil-A. But would I care if Chick-fil-A had my face? No, because right now I have to pull into the mobile through lane, take out my phone, open the app, hit the scan button, scan the QR code. There's a camera staring at me so that the staff can see me. I can't see them; they can see me. But yet I got to use a QR code scanner when I could just smile and they go, "Welcome back, Troy." Mm-hmm. Pull forward, you know.
Well, and I think if it enhances the guest experience and the guest is okay with it, I think it has to happen. And I think when we opt into loyalty, when we opt into an app, when we opt into those things, we want that customization. We're expecting that customization. At Amazon, I have to log in. If I just go to Amazon.com and log out, I'm not going to get the customized experience. And so there's people that want to do that. But I also would say I've got 3 teenage kids. None of them care about their privacy the way that our parents did, or even some people in our generation do. None of my kids or their friends give a crap. They put anything and everything out there. And so because of that, I think more and more it's going to be expected where I walk in and digitally they give me the Cheers experience. And then whoever the cashier is, they could have started 15 minutes ago, but it's going to say, hey, Troy, I see that you got the, XYZ last time. Is that what you're looking for today? And just make life easy for you.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think we're getting close. And you're right. Look, kids are digitally native. They never had a world without it where we have. So totally get we're in that generational transition. And these new technologies, particularly driven by AI engines behind them, are going to really revolutionize a lot of things in convenience. And look, we're going to be in chairs floating around above the floor, never leaving the house, and everything coming to us, just by thinking about it soon. But maybe not in my lifetime. All right. We always wrap these shows, Jeremy, with some personal type fun stuff. You mentioned 4 kids. What are the age ranges?
19, 17, 16, and 9.
Okay. That's awesome. Gen Z to Gen Alpha. So you got both. That's fantastic. Yep. Do any of the 4 of them, or what combination of them, have an interest in Asian culture, media, or cuisine?
So my son, so I have my third child, my 16-year-old, I tease him. So he's actually adopted. He's from East Africa. And so today he was having scrambled eggs with kimchi in my kitchen when I went out. I'm like, why are you eating kimchi with? He's like, because I love the way it tastes. And he had crunchy, chili sauce, Chinese chili, crunchy sauce on his scrambled eggs. And so we tease him about his Asian, and he eats more Asian cuisine. He studies Asian culture. He loves it. So yes, he, amongst any of the 4 of my kids, eats it up, and I tease him from time to time. I'm like, dude, you're African, not Asian, but go do your thing.
Look, if you go to Tokyo or Osaka today, and you go to the cultural centers of modern media, Akihabara in Tokyo is one. Most of them are Anglo or non-Asian kids, are running around in full or semi-costume. They're there to have these experiences that are branded typically to a set of IP. And you just see the parents following them behind, like with a purse and a backpack and a wallet, like, what are we buying? Okay, we need that plushie and we need that poster and that game. yeah, it's good fortune for us at Pepper Lunch. So follow-up question is, have you brought your 16-year-old to Pepper Lunch yet?
I was actually just thinking that. So no, I have not. You know from me, because even before you were there, I was a Pepper Lunch fan
Yeah.
at the Irvine store. I'm excited that you guys got another store coming into Irvine. I think I saw on Paul's note the other day.
Yep.
And so I will be bringing them for Christmas from Dallas to California, and it is on our list to do 100%. So I'll text you a picture of the whole family eating at one of the Irvine stores, because we'll be in California for 2 weeks over the holidays.
All right. I got some free on me cards for you. Please let me host you. Please let me treat you to that experience. Yeah. New store coming. By the time this posts, that store will have been open in the Irvine Spectrum Mall.
Yep, and our office is right down the road from the Irvine Spectrum. And before we left California, we were living right up the road. So they're very familiar with the Spectrum, and teenagers love the Irvine Spectrum. So we're good there.
We're going to get them addicted, and then we're going to work on getting them a store in the Dallas area. How about that?
Love it.
Very good. Jeremy, thanks for your time. Thanks for your plethora of experience and information. Thanks for your opinions that are well-informed. I think that the value the audience will get today should be inspiring, and hopefully folks will reach out to you. On that vein, we always try to end the show. Make sure people can find you. You have a podcast. Talk about all the things that people can learn about you.
Restauranttechnologyguys.com. I talk every week, have a podcast. I've had the honor of having Troy on the show, talk about all things restaurant technology, from this AI stuff to kitchen automation and stuff. That's going on 4 years of weekly podcasts. And so restauranttechnologyguys.com. LinkedIn is the most active social media that I'm on. And honestly, you just go search Jeremy Julian, you're going to find me. You may even see a video of me wishing Troy a happy birthday on one of those videos that happened a couple weeks ago. But no, absolutely. And the business's name is Northstar, cbsnorthstar.com. You can check out our point of sale solution that we developed really with this 30 years of background history to solve multi-unit restaurant problems.
Awesome. Thanks, Jeremy. Appreciate you being on. Good luck with everything, and we'll see you again soon.
Awesome. Thanks, Troy.
Thank you for listening to the Pineapple Perspective. If you loved today's episode, leave a review and a 5-star rating. I look forward to welcoming you back next time.